Hey, this is Hayden Gillum. Thanks for watching MotoAmerica on YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe.
It's time for the MotoAmerica AMA FIM North American Road Race Championship. It's MotoAmerica Superbikes at Virginia from Virginia International Raceway. It's our third round of 2022, and we're in Alton, Virginia. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Supersport. I'm Greg White, standing alongside two-time champ Jason Pridmore. Now, Jason, we've got one race in Supersport, and so far it's been all Josh Herrin on the Ducati.
Yeah, he's done an amazing job. Both races in Atlanta, the starts that he got on that Ducati was amazing, and he was able to take that lead, build on it throughout both races down there, and even this morning in qualifying. He went back to second or third after being fastest, put another Dunlop tire on there, and went out and went even quicker to snag pole.
And you can see Josh Herrin sitting on pole position with an incredibly fast time. But, Jay, there's more stories on this grid, including Josh Hayes. The number 4 Josh Hayes is back racing, and Josh is second in all-time wins in AMA competition, only to Miguel Duhamel. 86 for Miguel and 83 for Josh Hayes.
Yeah, and when you look at both those guys, obviously legends of our sport, it's great to see Josh still motivated to come out here and do the business, and he's on a very competitive motorcycle this weekend. I know he's been training and getting ready to go, so much like Miguel went late into his career, but so is Josh Hayes.
And speaking of Josh Hayes, there's a rider who's young on this grid. How about this photo from Ty Scott, who's 16 years old? 7 years ago, he got that photo with Josh Hayes. Incredible looking at that and a great post. So we get right down to Hannah, who's on the grid with Tyler Scott. Good afternoon, Hannah.
And Greg, Tyler Scott gets to now grid up alongside Josh Hayes. How exciting for him. Tyler, this is your first front row start this season, your rookie season in this class. How are you going to approach these first few laps?
Yeah, I'm really excited because the qualifying went really well. We were P1 in qualifying 1, and then we wrapped up P3 in qualifying 2. So it's definitely a good feeling being on the front row, and being on a different bike than Atlanta. I feel a lot more comfortable, and I'm ready for the race.
Best of luck out there, Tyler. Let's get over to Jamie Howe.
Well, Hannah, our Supersport pole sitter and points leader, Josh Herrin, had a struggle of a day on Friday. He sat back in 5th place, 3/10 off of that pole position, but the team stayed overnight. They were able to get the bike turned around. They picked up over 1.2 seconds in Q2, and that allows Josh to now collect the Wilbur watch from the MotoAmerica COO, Chuck Asplund. Go ahead and you can hand him that beautiful watch. Josh, we know that you have a quick bike over 1 lap, 3/10 clear of the rest of the field, but it's a hot day out here today, and you're going to have to stay with it as far as physicality goes. What's going to be the objective for you to stay in front of the field?
Hopefully we can get a race like we had at Road Atlanta. That'd be great for me, but I don't think it's going to be that easy today or tomorrow. I think these guys are going really well. And, hopefully we can get a good start like we did at Road Atlanta, try and get out front. But if we can't, we'll just have to re-strategize. I think it'll, like I said, be a little bit different. But hopefully this V2, keeps me up front and feeling confident. So just hoping for a good race, and hopefully the heat doesn't get to us too bad.
Okay.
All right, you can hear the wind whipping around here at Virginia International Raceway, a natural road course, meaning somebody made this thing with a bulldozer all the way back in 1957. Jason, take us through it.
Well, they're going to get a nice run down to turn 1, but it's a very slow turn 1, so we got to get the field through there nice and clean that first lap. 3, 4, 5, 6, a series of S's as you head down to turn 7. Our next real major passing spot up the hill, across the ridge, Greg, to turn 10. Very tricky into there. Goes off camber, you fling right back down to the left on the run back down to the checkered flag. Some fast left rights coming onto that front straightaway.
And Jason, looking at Virginia International Raceway, when we talk about raceability of a racetrack, we seem to have really 2 characteristics. Sometimes it's close racing, and other times it kind of promotes a checkout. All right, we're going to have more coming at you, including the race start, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back to VIR in a moment.
There we go. All right, third time's the charm. Roger, Hayden, I'm Robbie Floyd. We get to interject in between our shows here, and I want to interject once again. Now I have seen you with that Wilbur watch. I have seen Chuck Asplund with that Wilbur watch, and I've seen Josh Herrin with that Wilbur watch. You can get one. There we go. Roger, good to have you back. Tough times, tough times. And we can hear it coming across the public address system as well. Mr. Faraci out there and showing everybody what's up. A longtime supporter of MotoAmerica and motorcycle racing in general, whether it be with dirt or in the road racing. And Rocco Landers just behind them. He's going to be starting in fourth. All right, some quick thoughts. Not sure how many breaks we have here. I don't want to knock it all out. And I'll talk with our producer in just a second. With Josh Herrin on pole, Lockoff, and Ty Scott. I love seeing that picture of Ty Scott when he was little and looking up to Josh Hayes, and now he's going to get to race with him. But there's another Josh that has the pole that they're all going to have to get by.
Yeah, Josh Herrin looked really good this morning in that second qualifier after struggling yesterday. Looks like whatever the issue he had yesterday, really had that figured out. But he mentioned something this morning about his bike didn't feel maybe as good in the heat. So it's going to be, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen whenever he gets out there this afternoon in the heat. And there's going to be a lot more guys that's really competitive.
Producer Casey, he's taught me on Talkback. I'm trying to figure out how many segments we got on this. Josh Hayes, Kevin Olmedo, another guy to look for, starting in the third or the second row. Ben Smith, haven't seen him much
I was going to say that the surprise is Ben Smith down in seventh. He had some issues on Friday, though, and I think that really set him back a little bit. But this is a track that he knows well, and so they're struggling with something this weekend. But if he can get a good start, he can figure it out.
MotoAmerica Supersport coverage is sponsored by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series, and by Geico, where 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on your car or motorcycle insurance.
Welcome back to Virginia International Raceway. Supersport coming up as we are about 2.5 minutes or so away from this race start, getting ready to release these motorcycles onto their warm-up lap. Jason Pridmore. It is a scorcher out there. Let's take a look at the starting grid. We mentioned that Josh Herrin obviously on pole position. And Jay, his lap actually, from what we've seen since 2018, the JD Beach days, that is incredibly fast, a 26.7 for Herrin.
Yeah, and then you're going to have the two Vision Wheel GSXR 750s of Lockoff and Scott on the front row there, Rocco Landers, and how about Josh Hayes there slotting into the middle. He'll be a factor in this race. Nice to see Kevin Olmedo within a second of pole position. Benjamin Smith having a couple little problems. We'll get into those during the race. Hopefully they get that thing sorted out. Diego Perez, Luke Power from Australia. Love seeing those two guys there from Spain and Australia. Thermiotis, Chad Lewin, and Missani also on another GSXR 750. Liam Grant, Soltis West, LaRoche, Jones, and Austin Miller. Justin Jones coming back from a big accident yesterday. That team did a great job to put that motorcycle back together. If you pay attention to MotoAmerica's social media, Zaragoza, McQuigg, Seathaler, and Donde are going to roll out the grid there for the top 8 rows.
This is Next Generation Motorcycles in Supersport, new for 2022 in MotoAmerica and World Supersport competition. Josh Herrin, of course, aboard the Ducati Panigale V2, a motorcycle that is controlled via ECU to balance competition. So the front row, Jason, of this grid, all Next Generation motorcycles. We have the Ducati Panigale V2 alongside the Suzuki GSXR 750s. Now there's mods to the GSXR 750s as they're now throttle-by-wire. That allows them to be electronically controlled and some of the power balance taken out of that motorcycle. But the first of our traditional Supersport motorcycles is Rocco Landers on that Yamaha R6 on the second row.
And right now we are in a transitional stage a little bit, aren't we, Greg, as far as the balance of what we're going to do. We're seeing different bikes on the grids and mixing and matching, but at one point, I mean, today we've got the first 6 bikes all within a second. Yesterday there was 8 bikes within the first second in the front rows. But this guy here, what about the starts he got in Atlanta?
Yeah, that's really, it's on the mind, by the way, of the rest of the field, and having conversations with the riders behind him is how to manage this race. And speaking with Josh Hayes about how to manage a race, he said, well, I'm going to wait to see what Josh Herrin does if he gets that Jackrabbit start once more. Interesting grid position for Josh Herrin. He pulled in at a slight angle, as the way that this front straightaway works, it does angle.
Kink, isn't it?
It is. It's at a kink. So I really like what Josh Herrin just did to angle himself towards the first turn of this racetrack. See a good angle there,
you
Jay?
get a good shot at it. And the thing is that with the starts he gets, he's relying on trying to get to that middle of the track or right side of the track to lead down through turn 1. So we'll see if these GSXR 750s on the front row have anything for him.
It's time to get race number 1, VIR Supersport action underway. Upper left part of your screen, watch for those red lights to go on, and once they're off, we are racing. You can hear revs are up. And it looks like there might be.
Looks like we got a problem here. I'm looking out the window to see. It might. Yeah, there's a bike on the grid. Looks like they're looking at the Luke power machine there, Greg. If you look in row 4, you can see the signs are up now, start delay. And you can see Luke there getting off his bike. Not sure exactly if there's some fluid on the ground. Looked like one of the mechanics jumped over to look at it. So.
And that is a danger, of course, with the heat here in Alton, Virginia at the moment, is if a motorcycle does overheat.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? Is it's the overheating, and they're going to give these guys what they're probably going to do, Greg, is they'll give them a warm-up lap burst. Yeah, that's what they're going to do. They're going to send them around again, and the thing is it's when you have the kind of heat that we have right now, that's a little bit stifling. You need to get the starts kind of going, right? Because they come in off the warm-up lap, they've got air going through the radiator, and if the bikes sit there for too long and they just start to overheat. So obviously somebody there on the 4th row caught that.
Yeah, and race bikes, so these motorcycles obviously are the same model that you can buy for the street. So you can go down to the showroom and you can pick yourself up a Yamaha R6 or GSX R600 or 750, even the Panigale V2. But oftentimes on these race bikes, they take that radiator fan, the one that you have on your street bike, off. It's an unnecessary part generally for racing. So it's not like these bikes are going to get up to temperature and then you're going to have a fan blowing.
And I saw Luke get back on the bike and get it started. And I do see the pace car back there behind all the bikes, but I didn't see Luke in front of that pace car. So we'll see if the Australian's going to be able to get. He's been really impressive this year too. We saw him at the Daytona 200. Thought he did a really nice job in Atlanta as well, and he was quick here yesterday, learning a new track, new circuit for him. We got a couple international wise. You know, we got Diego Perez too, who's over here from Spain, and he's been really impressive too, Greg. Like, these guys are coming and learning these tracks. They've come from other series around the world. And for him to slot himself there in the top 8 positions is pretty impressive.
Kevin Olmedo, of course, from El Salvador, and Zaragoza from Mexico, and Sam Lockoff from South Africa. So what's interesting, Jason, is this next generation and the way that these rules and these motorcycles are shaping up. And we, of course, at our first round for Supersport at Road Atlanta a few weeks ago, we saw the unveiling, it's so weird to say in a way, of the GSX-R 750, but in next generation trim, and that was right there by this rider 44 Sam Lockoff. Now, you know, with a lot of hard work and getting all the parts that teams need, we now have 3 GSX-R 750s in the field. There's Tyler Scott on the 70. That's Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki's, and both of these riders, young, hungry, but this 16-year-old, a lot of eyes are on him as the future bright star in the United States.
Yeah, had a really good talk with his crew chief down there, Robbie Peterson, and he's really impressed with this young man, as he should be. I mean, he comes here 3rd on the grid, and I am looking out the window. Luke Power did make it back to the grid, G-Dub.
Lights are on, and here we go. All right, so clutches are out, and another good launch by Josh Herrin. I mean, a wow start by the number 2. Here we go into turn number 1, and Tyler Scott hard on the brakes. There goes Lockoff up the inside. Lockoff just a couple of weeks ago with a broken leg, walking around on a cane. That not affecting him on the motorcycle. So it is Warhorse HSBK Ducati New York Racing's Josh Herrin who leads the way over a pair of Vision Wheel M4X Star Suzuki's, and there's Rocco Landers.
He slid up the inside of Josh Hayes there in a very, very smooth pass up underneath Hayes, and Diego Perez got a great start. He's on that fluorescent yellow R6. You can see him back there just behind Benjamin Smith. So talking with Benjamin and his dad. I talked to his dad this morning. They've been struggling a little bit, Greg, with what else? But electronics. It seems like 1 or 2 of our riders each week, and Diego Perez runs very wide, have issues with electronics. The 88 bike there behind Josh Hayes has switched everything off. No TC, no anything for Benjamin, as they were having some troubles with the electronics kicking on in places that it shouldn't have. Hayes now goes up underneath Ty Scott into turn 10. he doesn't want to let Herrin get too comfortable out front. We know, it's Rocco Landers. My apologies. Rocco Landers, great job going up underneath Ty Scott. He slides in there. Hayes still behind Ty Scott.
I like the aggressiveness from the Landers Racing Yamaha R6 rider Rocco Landers. Onto the front straightaway we go. All the while, Josh Herrin setting off into the distance. But Tyler Scott trying to keep him honest. A 130.902 from a dead stop. Into turn number 2 they go.
Looked like Rocco was having another look. Yes, he did. He was able, I saw Ty Scott go past Rocco. Rocco did a really nice job of getting back. And remember, Rocco Landers' pace at the end of these races is always really strong. If he could keep these guys kind of honest at the beginning of the race, expect that 97, who's made a big jump in his riding by getting some coaching from the guy that's 2 places behind him, Josh Hayes. So kind of an interesting dynamic going on there at the moment. But talking to Stoney Landers this morning, he was telling me that they're pretty comfortable on the bike. Rocco's getting better as well. And, this is really encouraging from the 97 to see him where he's at. Ty Scott thought about it for a minute there, Greg. Going up underneath turn 7, thinks better of it.
Sam Lockoff had a problem all the way back at the exit of turn number 2. He wasn't quite able to hold the line. He had reeled Josh Herrin in for a moment, but now that gap is forming. Yeah. So it's Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki's Sam Lockoff, who's trying to keep Josh Herrin on that Ducati Panigale V2 in sight. And Rocco Landers trying to upset the apple cart and keep his Yamaha on the podium. Jamie?
We can talk about Sam Lockoff. You mentioned his broken leg. He has a broken tibia in 2 different places. And while it doesn't affect him so much while he's out there racing because of adrenaline, it did affect their testing program. And because he wasn't able to do any more than 5 laps in a scheduled 2-day test, his crew chief, Jeremy Toy, and then Chris Ulrich were actually able to get on the 750s, and they were able to confirm a few things with the new electronics. And they said the job that Sam has been able to do is just even more impressive than what we thought. You go back to Road Atlanta, where he had back-to-back second-place finishes, and the electronics were nowhere near dialed into where they are this weekend. So a lot of good things to come for the rest of the season for that team.
And Jamie, I spoke to Sam just before the start of this race, and he says that a lot of the problem that he has is where the ligaments actually attached down there around the fibula. Those are the ones that have been torn. And he told me, he says it's hard to ride, but it's a lot easier to ride than it is to walk. So, for him, that adrenaline is going to kick in. Ty Scott, having a look up underneath him, you can see Ty Scott was able to get through on Rocco Landers last time by, drafted past the R6 on the front straightaway. But we still have, Greg, 7-8 guys in a line here. Diego Perez, Benjamin Smith back there, Luke Power, and then, of course, Nassani on the other GSX-R 750. You could see him just lurking back there, trying not to let these guys get away. So they're all doing a good job. Herrin's just got his head down, 28.4. But, Greg, we've seen 27s out of all these guys, low 27s. Obviously, 26.7 was our pole position. So I still think that there's some speed left. I know it's gotten a lot warmer than it was this morning, though.
Well, that's really the question, is how hard do you push in the early laps as we get deep into the lap count in this Supersport race? How well is that rear tire going to hold up? Well, I'll tell you what, those 750s do have some grunt coming off that final corner, and Lockoff had made a bid for the lead last lap and went wide going into turn number 1, and Herrin was able to regain that lead. And boy, Lockoff and Scott are able to close the gap substantially on that straightaway to the Ducati of Josh Herrin.
You see a 28.1 there from Ty Scott, but look, Rocco Landers as well is still sitting there on the back of these guys, as is Hayes. They broke away a little bit. Hannah, what you got?
As the field is trying to close in on Josh Herrin, I talked to him and he said he's not really a qualifier. He prefers to race, so I'm sure he's living for this right now, but pole position really helped him with his confidence. Yesterday he missed the first session, so he feels like he's been playing catch up kind of on the back foot. They made some changes from yesterday to today, and it made a huge improvement. He said overall he feels like the Ducati is pretty good to the tires, so he's not really worried about them going off throughout the race.
I was sitting out there yesterday, Greg, for the first practice in the morning. Herrin came rolling by with his arm up, and then it seemed like it was probably a good 7-8 minutes. He came rolling by again with his arm up. So they had some troubles at the beginning of their weekend, but this is where you rely on a guy like Herrin with a ton of experience, who right now is doing his best to break away from this group of 4. But that's where you rely on a rider's experience there, isn't it? To be able to, he's done 1 million laps around here, as he had said, but doing laps on this bike is something that was really foreign to him. So he's able to put his head back together, run a good day yesterday in second practice. You see Rocco Landers is having another little stab up the inside. Not quite there underneath Ty Scott, but Josh has done a nice job there. just to get back where he's at today.
So looking at Sam Lockoff, he's close to Josh Herrin. He's able to get a really good run out of that turn 17A that leads you onto that front straightaway. We call it a straightaway. It's more kinked. And here goes Lockoff up the inside. So the bid for the lead. There goes the South African around Josh Herrin. Herrin's going to try to go up the inside. There's not a lot of room there, and Herrin pushes him out of the way. Lockoff into the grass.
Hey, that's just good hard racing there, in my opinion. I think that, you know, Lockoff went up underneath him, got into that next right, and it caused him to go a little bit wide, and Herrin had that door open, and he went for that door, and I think that that's just good, clean, hard racing. Now Lockoff gets shoved back to 5th place. It'll be interesting to see if he's able to close that distance back. But it's a very tight place there, Greg, where that just happened. And, you know, Herrin had every right to kind of fire back up underneath there, and he was able to do so. That opened the door for Ty Scott. And I expect Ty Scott to be really close onto that front straightaway. You can see here, Sam does a really nice job to sneak up underneath Herrin, but it's going to push him a little wide right through the middle. If he turns it too much tighter there, you have the risk of losing the front end. But you can see in the switchback here, Herrin's going to have a little bit more of the preferred spot. Lockoff tries to give him a little bit of room, but there's just a slight nudge there. But don't you worry about that 44, though, Greg. The Lockoff will come back from that. I think he can still run these guys back down.
Yeah, and thank goodness there's been dry conditions here the last couple days, so it's just dirt he's going through and not mud on the grass. We've seen that a couple of years. So now, in terms of our front runners, we have Herrin, and Scott is the next Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki to try to throw some shots at Herrin, and then Rocco Landers and Hayes. And talking to the number 4, Josh Hayes, Jason, on the Squid Hunter R6. I asked Josh an hour ago what his race strategy was, and he basically said he didn't have one. He needed to find out how this whole thing was going to play out. Daytona's one thing, as we saw Hayes earlier this year nearly win the Daytona 200, but coming to a twisty track like VIR is a different animal. Now keep in mind, the last time Josh Hayes won a race in his professional career was the last year he raced full-time, 2017. He did it on a Yamaha R1, and he did it right here at VIR.
Yeah, and he's got like 13 wins around here, I think, as he's going to have a look up underneath Rocco.
Oh,
Not
is there room?
Close enough. But you can see he's testing the waters, and Josh just hasn't had a chance to race against a lot of these guys. Obviously, he's raced Herrin in the past. He saw Rocco a little bit maybe at Daytona. He's never seen Ty Scott, and so you can see Locke up there trying to close the gap. He's going to get a double draft. He will feel that double draft from those R6s in front of him as he comes down this front straightaway. But Hayes is going to want to try to get through. He sees that little gap getting a little bigger now between these two guys, as Ty Scott is going to have a look up underneath Josh Herrin as they go down into turn 1, not quite close enough.
I'm going to tell you something. I think Ty Scott sat up a little bit earlier than he needed to in that one, Jason. I think that Ty has got an idea. If he needs it late in the race, if he can get close enough to Josh Herrin, he might have a draft and pass move. The question is, how late can it be done? Can it be done earlier than start-finish line? Because draft and pass after start-finish line isn't going to do him any good.
Well, the fastest lap of these 5 that last time by was Sam Lockoff, 28.1. Yes, Herrin did a 28.2, and you see the other guys 28.2, 28.4s for the R6s. So they're just starting. These two guys are just starting.
There goes
to go.
Scott up the inside. Nope, he's not going to do it.
But like you said, I think he's kind of testing waters a little bit, having a look at things. Now the pace is much more settled. At the beginning of the race, Herrin was able to pull away from guys up in this sector, and now he's not able to do it so much. I mean, it is pretty incredible when you think Tyler Scott's second weekend riding in the Supersport category, doing an incredible job on a bike that they're still kind of, developing.
Absolutely. So the way these next generation bikes work, there is a AMA approved base map. That's the map that basically allows the motorcycle to start and has limitations on that in terms of how much total throttle can be had at certain RPMs. Then on top of that is another map. That's what they've been working on. The base map is set. So Tyler Scott in the bubble behind Josh Herrin. Jason, from my perspective, they look pretty equally matched as Ty Scott in that draft.
Yeah, pretty close there. And I'm interested to see this battle for third as they went down the front straightaway. It looked like Hayes had a little bit of a run on Rocco. Let's look there. He's not able to get by the 97 was Josh Hayes. These two guys, 28.2s for the first 5 riders, Greg. All 5 of them, 28.2s. Hayes is trying. He wants to try to just get Rocco. He's probably a little bit bummed right now that he's helped Rocco get faster.
There he goes.
There you go. Hayes dives up underneath him. Now you can see it's a little bit cleaner. He's not going to give Rocco the same opportunity that Herrin had at the beginning with Lockoff, but Lockoff is now on the back of Rocco Landers.
And just like that, Hayes gets a couple of bike lengths away from Landers. Now he's going after these two. Josh Herrin Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York Panigale V2 against a Vision Wheel M4X Star Suzuki GSXR 750. And here comes that inline 4-cylinder 600cc Yamaha R6 piloted by veteran Josh Hayes.
And this is going to be a fast lap. And we know one thing about Josh. He is a grinder. He's not scared to run these laps, and he is getting onto the back of Ty Scott right now. He has just ran the fastest second split of anybody in the race, Greg, so he is on his way.
Onto the front straightaway they come. Let's get to Hannah.
In talking with Josh Hayes, you know, as we approach the halfway point of this race, tire management has been a large topic of conversation throughout the weekend, and I asked Josh if he had a strategy toward the end of the race as the tires go off, and he said tire management doesn't really bother him. He's comfortable moving around. He went out on an old tire yesterday and did consistent fast laps in traffic, so he's not even really thinking about it, and he also knows that he's got a lot of race smarts from a lot more years of experience than some of the younger riders that he's riding around, so he's not worried about it one bit.
And that experience has taken him to the fastest lap of the race so far, a 27.7. And obviously he's closed right onto the tailpipe of Tyler Scott.
And if there's one thing I know about Josh, he wants to lead. He wants to try to see what these guys got. He's stood behind them for long enough now. Expect him to try to maybe do something possibly with Ty Scott as they get into the turn 10 area. You're going to watch here. Look what Josh does. Cuts across this curbing a little bit different than them. It's allowed him to keep that bike upright, and that's the second split that we're talking about that he was so quick in last lap. He's a little bit too far back to do anything with Ty Scott in turn 10 this lap, I believe, though.
All right, so a racecraft characteristic of Josh Hayes when he was at the top of his game was what, Jason?
Leading. Always wanted to lead. Didn't want to follow.
And when I talked to him, he said, if I get the chance, you know exactly what I want to do. I want to get out front and I want to set the pace. So as we get with, it's going to be about 9 laps to go left in this race as they come onto the front straightaway. What is Josh Hayes going to do? Now you're looking at 2 next-gen bikes versus the Yamaha R6. Different displacements, but try to be evenly balanced. But you can see that the V2 and the GSXR 750 slightly pull away from Hayes coming onto the front straightaway.
Yeah, but I think if he gets a little bit closer, he can get in that draft. Possibly we'll have to have a better look as it goes. I think right now when you think of experience and you think of guys being on these tires for as long as they have, look at 28.0, 27.9 for the first 2, 27.9, so second lap in a row for Hayes in the 7s. And then you can see Geraldo Ferracci down there. Big, obviously Ducati and Geraldo Ferracci go hand in hand for years and years. But now you see these 3 guys. I want to see if Lockoff can pull the pin and get a little bit closer. If these guys get a little racy, Lockoff's going to be there. Here comes Hayes. He's going to have a look down the inside, not quite close enough.
That would have been a pretty big move, a bold move, because for Ty Scott, who looked like he had, look at his hand guard. So the brake lever guard for Ty Scott is up in the air.
Turn 10 this time. I think Hayes is going to have a shot when they get on the brakes right here. Let's see what he's able to do. Yeah, you can see him lining that up from quite a way back. And Hayes is going to run. Now he keeps that bike nice and tidy down the inside. So now he's got one guy in front of him, Greg. And you got to remember, we talked about it on top of our show. He's chasing a little bit of history right now as that number 4. But man, nothing really gets to Josh. Like I said, he's a grinder. Let's see if he can get in the draft of that Ducati.
This Squid Hunter team is cheering for their number 4. A missed opportunity at Daytona for Josh Hayes, and he's looking to do it again. He never said he retired from racing. He just didn't have the chance to go full time, and there goes Hayes. He goes into the top spot, and he moves Josh Herron out of the way, and there's the number 4.
Yep, and now is the time. This guy's got so many laps around this track, and I've heard Roger Hayden say it all weekend. This guy, when he gets in front, especially here at a 27.681, it's going to be extremely difficult to pass this guy back, because these times that you see him doing, he's going to just grind him out for the remainder of these 8 laps. This guy's got so much track time around here on tires that are getting worn and getting old. He's literally putting the pressure on these kids now to say, all right, here I am, come and get me. And we know he's been training pretty hard. He talked to him last week. He said, yeah, I've been training really hard like I used to. I said, well, don't tell everybody that. Tell them you've been eating pizza and everything else. So, but you can see, Greg, it's going to start putting pressure on these guys as Herron now looking to try to go around the outside, not quite close enough to Ty Scott there.
The 47-year-old Hayes.
Is he 47?
47 years old. He's putting on a clinic for the 16-year-old Tyler Scott. And, of course, another veteran in the class, Josh Herron. This is amazing. And I saw Josh Hayes earlier today, Jason. I just looked at him and I just said, can you win? And he said, I think so.
Yeah, well, look, this number 70 is going to have something to say for that. Ty Scott, I don't think Ty Scott looks at the name on anybody. I think he's in his own world, and I mean that fully respectfully. Like, I don't think anything intimidates him. And right now, he's got 2 Superbike champions that he has sandwiched himself between and running as strong as he can. And, you know, again, I'm mentioning Lockoff. He's still there trying with that broken leg. Jamie?
I echo what you're saying about Tyler Scott. He just seems unfazed by all of the competition, all of the weight that's on his shoulders. You said it's his second Superbike race or Supersport race, but it's only his first race on the 750. He did 2 days of testing at Barber, so he did have a little bit of experience to get used to the electronics that he has to play with now, but he didn't have any experience with any of these riders. Josh Herrin doesn't let anybody follow him in practice, so he got those race laps right behind him. He's going to be able to fight, and he's going to get stronger as the weekend and as the season goes.
Yeah, no question. And I think that when you look at Hayes, that first sector, going through some of that tighter stuff, he's able to get away a little bit, isn't he, Greg? And then they kind of reel him back in, braking for turn 7. It's all pretty evenly and close around here. Fastest lap on the last time by was Lockoff. He was the quickest on the track at the 4. And then look at how much he pulls away coming back down here. Here you go. Josh Hayes goes up underneath Rocco in turn 4. He was able to get by Ty Scott in turn 10, and then he makes the move on Josh Herrin down into turn number 1. So he did it in 3 different spots, getting himself to the front.
So Hayes from 5th on the grid, leading the way. He set the fastest lap of the race 2 laps ago at a 27.681 when he went into the lead. Last time by the stripe, 28 flat.
Herrin just outbroke himself. He just goes 7-7, gets drawn into the draft, makes a big mistake from the number 2. Josh Herrin off into the grass, so now there will be 3 guys battling for this lead. So Herrin looked like he was the stronger one there at 7-7, Greg, and now he rolls off.
So that's going to leave a pair of Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzukis on the podium to duke it out with Josh Hayes. So your points leader off into the dirt. We'll see as he gets back on the track what he's able to salvage in terms of your points. And of course, as of this moment, talking to Josh Hayes, the Squid Hunter team, they're trying to make the decision if they're going to race any more races this season. There's a possibility of 2 on the horizon, but Jay, I think a win or even a double this weekend would do a lot to put a shot in the arm to the Squid Hunter team. Well, look, but there's still a lot of laps to go.
Well, the motivation, and when we went back to the beginning of our show, and we have that picture of Ty Scott sitting there 7-8 years ago with Josh Hayes in the pits. 31-year gap between the 2 of these guys battling at the front. It's a lot of storylines here, but you know, you could put Hayes on, and he's motivated. Like I said, Greg, he's motivated. He wants to win races, but I am super impressed with the 16-year-old that just seems unfazed by it all.
This might be an opportunity for Ty Scott to take the lead as he's close to Josh Hayes. He's got a good draft. What's he going to do as we head into turn number 1? You can see the top end of that GSXR 750. Thinks better of it this time. This is where Hayes shines. In his career in racing, Hayes loves to control the pace at front. It's almost like he has eyes on the back of his head. Hey, look, if you're new to MotoAmerica Supersport Racing, there are no rear-view mirrors on these motorcycles. You got to take them off when you race, but Josh Hayes and his experience over the years with his 83 race career wins, he just has a way about him of understanding what's going on behind him.
No, he's very sharp, and this is where he likes to be. He likes to be out front. All 3 of our riders in the front in the 27s, the 2 Vision Wheel bikes, 7.7s for both of them, and they're still kind of chomping along here. But Josh is pushing his own air, going 7.9, and you know, these 3 guys are obviously broken away a little bit further back now. Rocco Landers has dropped to about 3.2 behind the leader. Herrin in 5th.
Slight mistake by Tyler Scott through that S section. Looked like the bike got upset for a moment. He lost a couple of bike lengths. So if Tyler Scott thought he might have a bid onto the front straightaway, he's got some time to make up these next couple corners as they make their way towards the final turn 17 and 17A. This is a place where Josh Hayes has said that he really shines at VIR during the course of his career coming onto this front straightaway. Scott has a look over his shoulder. Might be an indicator to Scott that maybe he's getting a little bit of protest from that rear tire, Jason.
Yeah, and this is all new territory for him, isn't it? And he's going to be able to go back to Robbie Peterson and that team at the end of the day and say, hey, with 4 or 5 to go, this is what I started to feel. This was some of the stuff that I wish that we could dial in or dial out. Because again, Greg, like you say, I can see that thing moving around. Good call there, but you can definitely see it start to move around. And his teammate Lockoff is going to start to see that as well.
And the characteristics of VIR, they abuse the right side of the tire more than the left side of the tire. As a matter of fact, in the Medallia Superbike class and Stock 1000 class, Dunlop brings a tire that's asymmetric and it's thin gauge on the right side to control the heat in that tire. It's something they say is not necessary in the Supersport class because of the horsepower generated by these middleweight bikes. However, it's always a concern here at VIR what happens to the right side of the tire.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, as we get closer, look, Ty Scott, though, he just kind of digs back in, doesn't he? And this is the section you saw him have a little bit of a wiggle last lap, and this time through he cleans it. And you can see when these two guys out in front clean those laps, it makes it a lot harder for Lockoff to get in on the back, as Lockoff was into 10 a little bit deep and a little bit wide there. He is doing everything he can to close this distance back. Now, keep in mind, there's a championship here. Yes, Greg, we're only at round 2, but Lockoff ended up second in both races, I believe, in Atlanta. So this now, with Herron back there in 5th, this closes that up. And Ty Scott deep into the draft again of Josh Hayes, as it looks like they're coming up on some tail enders at the moment. Look at Ty Scott.
So Scott, using the horsepower that GSXR 750, goes into the lead for the moment. Can he hold on to it in turn 1? Hayes is going to follow him for the moment. So there goes the 16-year-old. And just like that, he's leading a Supersport race against Josh Hayes. And there is Lockoff. He's right in the mix.
You see how he just closed the door in 3? He wasn't going to let Josh just have his way and go right back up underneath him. He closed that door off in 3, and he did the same thing in 4. And now look what's happened. The 44 says, I love this. Lockoff is enjoying the fact that these two guys are engaging. We know that Josh isn't going to want to let Ty lead. He's going to want to get right back and fire away.
I like Ty Scott. He's got some warnings from the rear tire. Doesn't really care. He says, okay. Oh, and
something fell off there,
I believe that was that right brake guard, Jason.
Wow.
I kept seeing it on his handlebar. So that's now gone. And no dramas, and it landed in there. So that thing was up and out. So I think it was just coming loose. That might have been from an incident earlier, but it could have been just a part that vibrated loose in this race. So no front brake guard for him, a requirement for MotoAmerica if you come to compete. And that, of course, is a safety issue in case riders ever get together. It's like a protective little piece of metal that tries to protect that front lever. Oh, see, up and out of the saddle he goes.
Okay, so Greg, let's talk about something here real quick. As Lockoff now gets the drive on his teammate and will go by. You got to remember, these GSXR 750s, they're coming out of there in 3rd gear. They're right in the middle of the torque curve. It's something that you don't necessarily have on a 600. On a 600, you're going to be coming out of that corner much higher RPMs. So the R6 is going to be in a much higher RPM and much more drivable out of there. This is where I think that the rules and how we have them, each bike has its own personality. Each bike has its own performance-based advantages, but that 750 can still jump up and get you when you're coming out of there. I actually talked to Sam about that earlier today. So they're coming out of there, Greg, in 3rd gear, a little bit more torquey, and you're going to see what happens here. As he starts to roll on the gas, he's going to be at a little bit lower RPM, which gives you that feeling of, hey, I can roll the gas on a little bit more, and that's what you're going to see.
What a great save by Ty. Great save. You could see when the wheels started to spin and started to hop. And that's also, Jason, a function of as the team learns this GSXR 750 and how you manage the maps that you have in the bike.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see what Josh just did there. He kind of started to open up that gap and makes a big error in 7 and will allow those guys to close up. Hayes knows right now that if he can somehow make it to the end of that front straightaway, as Lockoff runs a little bit wide. So that's going to give Josh that extra room he needed. As Lockoff runs wide in turn 10, that gap spreads out. Hayes will for sure, 100%, if he gets down to the end of the straightaway, ahead of these two GSXR 750s, he will be in protection mode going down into 1, going into 3, and into 7. Those are going to be spots where this guy here has been in this position so many times. This will be a great last lap.
White flag out, final lap of competition. And Josh Hayes under braking as these pair of Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzukis are trying to throw everything they can at Hayes out of Oceanside, California on the Squid Hunter Yamaha R6.
Look at him closing the doors off. He did it in 1, he did it in 3. Now, if he can just rip through this 4, 5, 6, he should be good enough. The problem with running a little bit defensive,
oh, and there goes Lockoff.
Goes down.
Too much front brake. The bike goes into the air fence. And his race is over.
You don't see that out of him very often, but that's the pressure that this guy at the front's putting on these guys.
How do you like Josh Hayes? If you're just tuning in and watching Supersport and you know the name from years of watching racing, this is not a rerun. This is live action from Virginia International Raceway. Josh Hayes is leading on the final lap. He's got a small gap back to 16-year-old Tyler Scott. The problem with Scott's machine right now is the right side of his tire is giving up the ghost. He can't get on the gas coming onto the front straightaway. So Josh Hayes has a couple more corners to navigate to notch another race victory on his resume, an inch closer to the all-time total victory race record of Miguel Duhamel. Here comes Josh Hayes. The final corner is complete. Onto the front straightaway he comes, and it's Josh Hayes, the 47-year-old, who will take victory for Squid Hunter in Supersport race number 1 here at VIR. What a run for the number 4. Tyler Scott in second. Rocco Landers will inherit third from an early exit from Sam Lockoff. Josh Herron, who ran off the track earlier, in fourth place. And
what a legend, huh? I mean, honestly, what a legend. I mean, I said, Greg, he can just grind out the laps. This Ty Scott kid, man, he impresses me. I'm bummed to see Lockoff do that. Rocco Landers ends up third. A tremendous ride from him. Only 3.6 seconds off the win. Heron Nassini ends up fifth. Power, Perez, Almedo, Benjamin Smith drops back to ninth. And we're waiting to see Lockoff come through. He did come through. Nope, he hasn't come through yet. Liam Grant, Sloan West, 11th. So we heard Lockoff is back up and running.
can you believe it? Can you believe what your eyes are seeing right now, Jason Pridmore?
I can, actually. I know this guy pretty well, and he told me, he's like, I've been grinding it out. I think I can win at Virginia. He told me that in Atlanta. He was like, if the Atlanta, if we'd have come straight here a week after, he was ready to go.
So what are you saying? 14 race wins at VIR in his career for
Amazing.
Josh Hayes. That's career win number 84. He is now only 2 away from Miguel Duhamel's all-time win record. And what, Jason? It has been 5 years since Josh Hayes has won a professional motorcycle road race. When we step away, we're going to come back and we're going to hear from Hayes about his race. You don't want to miss it.
Robbie Floyd and Roger Hayden here with you in our little break in between. I asked you, Roger Hayden, yesterday, can the old man do it? And you said, I think he can. He just proved that he can. And
he just did what he always does. Leads from the front, super consistent throughout the race, and, pretty much forced everybody else into mistakes and just was consistent. And, we were watching that qualifier this morning, and, he was riding with some other guys, but he went out and he did 11 or 12 laps in a row, and I was telling you, that's what he does. He gets ready for the race. He's not worried about winning practice. Who was the strongest at the end of the race? Josh.
83 wins in his career in AMA and MotoAmerica racing. Now it's up to 84. It's not like he didn't try and build on those 83. A couple of years ago, he had a part-time season in Supersport and working with Melissa Paris, and now, kids, haulers, dogs, training, rider coach, he's done it all, and he still comes back on a part-time basis. It proves he's the best super sport rider today here at VIR.
Yeah, and he looks like he's in good shape.
Yeah.
He looks good. He's been riding a lot, was really fast. Heck, he could have won the Daytona 200. He was right there for that win. So, he looked good and was just consistent, was patient, didn't force it early, kind of fell back a little bit early. And what about Tyler Scott? What a ride for him. He totally went to school today, and he didn't go to school. He got a master's degree today out there with Josh Hayes, that whole race, and made a little mistake at the end, but that was a great ride by him.
Going through the weighing in process and everything in Parc Fermé. Yeah, Ty Scott, he got his master's today. He's working on his doctorate. And, again, he's a very talented rider. He had that uh-oh moment where that was our save of the day, our save of the week so far. We did see Lockoff go off in the grass. But, that was going to be a professional high side coming up for Ty Scott that he was able to save. As we see Josh Hayes pulling in to Parc Fermé, 84 wins now, all-time in competition. And I don't know if he shed a tear, but I'd be looking I'd be looking that direction, shedding a tear underneath that helmet, because you never are guaranteed your next race, much less your next win.
Yeah, you always think you're going to win again, but, you know, the way the sport is, you really do never know. And it's good to see now a Yamaha getting a win again in Supersport as well.
Squid Hunter getting their win on the season, and their second attempt again was out there at Daytona, as you mentioned, or Jason mentioned, had a chance of winning the Daytona race. You saw at Daytona experience how he worked his way through the field, gave himself a chance. He worked his way through this field. A congratulatory kiss from Melissa, and congratulations, Josh Hayes. Let's go next door.
Back at VIR, here's a look at how Josh Hayes was able to win this race.
Yeah, he did it everywhere, didn't he, Greg? He did it in turn 4, he did it in turn 10, down into turn number 1 is probably the next one that we're going to see here as he goes up underneath Aaron. Late race mistake by the number 2. See here, Josh goes up underneath him, and
yeah, that was a tough one. It seemed like he had a little bit of issues getting that bike slowed down for Josh Herron, who ends up in 4th place, so he'll get himself a decent amount of points. So here's the way the race ended up. 0.7 of a second to Tyler Scott over Rocco Landers, who's able to hold on to that 3rd place, and then Herron, after that mistake, was able to finish 9.9 back. So look, how about Luke Power? Luke Power had the start of the race. He had to pull off, and he was able to restart and then get things going again. So 6th place for him.
Yeah, these guys all had a good race from about 5th back to 9th to Benjamin Smith there. But how about Nassani? 5th place for him on a bike he'd never ridden until this weekend, also been on that GS6R 750. So best result ever for him, Diego Perez.
And Jay, let's go back to the top of the show. This photograph of a 9-year-old Tyler Scott with Josh Hayes when Hayes was still racing, and those two got to race up. Pretty incredible.
Yeah, they're going to get a whole nother new picture today on the podium together, so that's going to be a lot of fun to see.
Yeah, but I'm sure that Tyler Scott isn't as happy as he was. Let's get right down to Hannah with our winner, Josh Hayes.
Greg, of course, the name Josh Hayes and the record speak for itself. He certainly put on a clinic out there today. Josh, what was it that gave you the confidence to go head-to-head with that Ducati and those 750s and overtake them for this victory?
I feel like I needed some mistakes, really, but all I tried to do is keep my intensity as high as I could and put a lot of pressure on them and just ride as fast as I could and make as few mistakes as possible, and most of it came down to mistakes, and I was pretty clean. So I'm so thankful. This Squid Hunter boys hunting was good today. And they did such a great job. They built me a professional bike, a winner. My wife, with so much going on, thank you for coming out to the grid and here to the podium. And then, of course, the kids back home, and Matilde and Wendy, who are watching the kiddos. I hope you're watching on TV. We love you guys. And thank you, Dunlop, Owens, the Squid Hunter boys, and hopefully taught these things that J-Force is worth it,
Congratulations to Josh Hayes. Let's get over to Jamie with our 2nd place finisher.
And that's Tyler Scott with his best career Supersport finish yet. But you were out there between 2 past Superbike champions. What do you learn in these moments?
Yeah, it was an incredible race. It was really hot out. The tires were sliding all over the place, but I couldn't have done it without my whole team, Robbie Peterson, Dustin, Chris Ulrich, John Ulrich on the Vision wheel, and X-Star Suzuki. It was great.
It was a great race indeed. Congratulations on that 2nd place finish. Let's get back to Hannah Lopa.
3rd place today goes to not only Josh Hayes' student, but Rocco Landers. How were you able to stay so consistent throughout the race in order to capture this podium here today?
Yeah, old man can still do it. He's one of my heroes. I've been watching him since I was a little kid, but it's awesome to be up here. I wish I could have been a little further up, but the podium will do for now. We're going to get it. But, yeah, the race was okay. I had some solid pace in the beginning. Made a few changes, didn't quite pay off on the front end, but I couldn't do it without my team. They helped me out so much, my dad, my whole team. A good friend of ours, Lou, who's helped us out so much over the past few years. It's amazing. CFE Moto, thank you guys.
Congratulations to Rocco Landers, guys.
Well, those are 2 different podium speeches from the veteran Josh Hayes and Rocco Landers as well, but we'll have more coverage from VIR when we come back. Josh Hayes, 84 career wins, and he keeps on going.
The number 4 turns into a number 1, looking for a drink. He's going to get a celebratory drink tomorrow out there. And yeah, all that training paying off, working and helping develop some of these riders and rider coaching. It's always good to stay fit, Roger. I mean, you're looking trim and fit. Maybe we'll get to see you out there again one day.
No.
No, okay. There's the CFE guys that, again, certified wing nuts is what it should be, because they are definitely a party bunch.
They're actually at my hotel.
Are they?
Yeah. Luckily not next door.
Remind me where not to stay next year. Hey, great job by Josh. The old man does it, and I can call him that because I'm older than he is. But what a run! You know, that adrenaline wears off right about now. He's going to be drained, don't you know?
No, he's still gonna. It's not gonna wear off just yet. Maybe give him about an hour. I mean, it's been 5 years since he won, so it's gonna sink in. He's gonna do it after the press conference, and then it'll kind of calm down a little bit.
And he checks that box. 84 wins now, trying to catch up to Miguel Duhamel, who has 86 all-time wins. Matt Millad was 1 behind him. Now he's 2. All of Matt's came from the Superbike. And a guy on each side of him that looked up to him growing up. We saw that picture at the start of the television broadcast with Ty Scott, and a little Ty Scott at that, and Josh Hayes, and we know that how much Rocco looks up to him and is under his tutelage now, and it's helping Rocco. And on the same bike, on that Yamaha, seeing what could have happened for Rocco, I think that's even more drive for Rocco Landers.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he sees what that bike can do, and I think at first we thought Rocco set himself up for the perfect spot. You know, his first 5 laps were really good today. He got a good start, was aggressive early, didn't lose a lot of time, and mid-race just couldn't keep touch. And so tomorrow I think he can do better. Now he can go to Josh and ask Josh, hey, how did you keep that pace throughout the whole race?
Yeah, we still have the Manali Superbike race coming up in just a bit, the SportBikeTrackGear.com junior race, as well as twins. A lot of racing still ahead here at MotoAmerica from VIR as they get ready out on the track. Be interesting conversations out there. Josh Herron. Also, when they go back, they'll probably talk about points as well. Rocco Landers being smooth and consistent the first, 3 races so far this year puts him in the championship hunt.
And also, I mean, Josh, a lot of guys made some mistakes today. I mean, I know he spotted him a couple races, but he keeps winning some races like this. He could find himself back in the championship hunt as well.
You're talking about Josh Hayes?
Yeah.
Is he going to race the rest of the series?
I don't know. Why wouldn't you?
Right. That's exactly right. We need to find some funding for that man. Let's send it to Jason and Greg next door.
MotoAmerica Supersport coverage is sponsored by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
Supersport done and dusted here at VIR for the first of 2 races this weekend. Let's get right down to Hannah.
Guys, I've got Josh Herron here. Josh, you led a lot of laps throughout that race, had quite the battle with Josh Hayes up at the front. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I was just kind of doing my own thing up front. I figured I'll get out there, kind of save my energy, see if I got anybody passing me. Nobody was really challenging, so I just kept it in the low to mid-28 range. For some reason, Hayes came up the inside of me going into 1 and just drifted over super dirty. I had to release the brakes and go around him. He's been racing for a lot of years. I've been teammates with him for a long time. He coached me last year, but respect went out the window today, and tomorrow it's on. So, yeah, I'd like to say I'm happy that he got his win today, but I'm not. And, you know, Pridmore's saying I made a mistake. I made a mistake after he ran me wide trying to catch back up. I didn't get the thing back into gear all the way in a second. I was in 3rd and just had no engine braking going into 1. Ran off in the dirt. It's a shame because the guys really put together a really good bike for me today over the night. And, yeah, I'm coming for him tomorrow.
Disappointment today for Josh Herron. Let's get over to Jamie Howe.
Hannah, if we go back to our podium finishers, we take Tyler Scott at 16 years old, Rocco Landers at 17 years old. Combined, they are still 13 years younger than Josh Hayes. His wife, Melissa Paris, he mentioned in the interview, you've watched the commitment that he's put into returning to the racetrack. Put into perspective for us what it's been like at home.
I mean, at home, he's just turned back into the old Josh Hayes that I know. So it's really nice to see him get up in the morning, get on his bike, put in the work. More work than I know all of these boys combined are doing. They might think they're working hard, but they don't even know what it means. So I see it day in and day out. And having the opportunity to see him do what he was made to do, I mean, I know it's nice for everyone here, but it makes my heart feel so good.
Congratulations. This is a big day for the family.
Thank you so much.
All right, Melissa, who is a racer in her own right now, team owner, weighing in on this one. Let's take a look at these race highlights, Jason, because it was Herron who got off to an early start.
Yeah, great start, and you could see everybody kind of getting in there behind him, and then there was an early battle between Herron and Lockoff, and a little love tap there that I thought was just good, hard racing. Hayes goes up underneath Rocco Landers. He would do the same thing to Ty Scott, you know, and when he gets down into turn 1, kind of has that position. Herron thinks he turned in, or Josh pushed him a little bit wide. But he did make a mistake. He can call me out if he wants, but he did make a mistake a few laps later by running off the track out into the grass, and ends up coming back, getting those championship points that he needs. Ty Scott ends up running up underneath Josh Hayes with about 3 or 4 to go, and then has this big mistake coming out of the last corner, and that opened up the door again for Hayes, and a very uncharacteristic mistake you can see here from Sam Lockoff. Josh Hayes, though, goes on and wins the race over Ty Scott and Rocco Landers.
So a clinic put on by the veteran Hayes. Let's take a look at how these standings are, because with Josh Herron's finish, he still leads this championship now by 18 over Rocco Landers, who's 1 point ahead of Sam Lockoff. So quite a change we have back there in the field. And then you have Ty Scott with Olmedo, and Josh Hayes, after his victory there, sitting on those 25 points. Well, Jason, as we look ahead to tomorrow, what do you think?
Well, I think it's going to be another barn burner. Obviously, Herron's going to come back with a little bit of vengeance tomorrow. Lockoff's not going to make the same mistake. I think when you look at it, you know, other than Hayes winning and Ty Scott being a great story, Herron really made out today because other mistakes were made. He's got a bigger points lead than he had when he started the day. Didn't have his best result. But now moving forward, we'll see how tomorrow goes. See if Josh can get the second race win of the weekend.
Well, we're going to see what happens tomorrow. Each one of these teams are going to go back to the drawing board, make some changes for tomorrow. What's going to happen? Herron said it's going to be very interesting. Well, that'll do it for Hannah Lopa, Jamie Howe, and Jason Pridmore. I'm Greg White. We'll see you tomorrow right here from VIR for Supersport race number 2.